In this video, Crazy Karen doesn't like that I smoke cigars in my own vehicle, tries to grab one out of my mouth, gets what she deserves. Got told to fuck off by my assignment group, and that's just what I did. And Karen secretly films me jogging and shows video to my boss. Crazy Karen doesn't like that I smoke cigars in my own vehicle, tries to grab one out of my mouth, gets what she deserves. People have lost that last bit of sanity during these troubling times. Okay, so as the title states, I smoke cigars, mostly cheap factory rejects, but an occasional good one too. I do not smoke in my house or around other people, as I know a very select group of people enjoy that particular aroma. Other point to note here, I drive my youngest to and from school, which is less than a mile away, seeing as the weather in my neck of the woods is bipolar at best. So, setting. Yesterday afternoon, I'm parked way outside school zone in a line to pick up kids, probably a block away in a residential neighborhood. I drive a big truck with a loud exhaust system. Players, me is me. Karen is K. School principal is P. I'm in the line of vehicles, engine off, listening to a good book on Audible, smoking the last bit of a good cigar. For those who don't know, a cigar can be set down and refreshed if need be. Also, I never smoke on school grounds and always have it out before my kid gets in the truck. It's my truck and no one else drives it, so I don't mind the smell of tobacco, and I have a bottle of Febreze that I use every couple of days. Anyway, about 5 minutes later, I see a woman get out of her car and begin to approach me. I watched her walk up past the two vehicles behind me and head my way. She's got the typical Karen look, hair, clothes, way too much makeup, and the like. She comes up right on my window and just stands there looking at me. I rolled my window down all the way and asked her if she needed anything. Dialogue goes as follows. K, what the hell do you think you're doing? Me, excuse me? K, you're smoking the pot. Yes, she called it the pot. On school grounds. You should be ashamed of yourself. Me, what the blue fuck are you talking about? K, I can see it in your hand and smell it. Me, well, obviously you can't smell it because this is a cigar. K, I don't think so. I'm calling the police. Me, knock yourself out, you dumb bitch. After her brain short circuits from being called a bitch, she tried to open my door, which was locked. Then she reached in my window and tried to grab the cigar out of my mouth. Now, life has taught us all from a very young age that fire is hot and things that burn from fire are also hot. But physics never seems to be on forefront of these morons. So she immediately burned her hand on the cigar and jumped back screaming that I did that on purpose. I started laughing because it was funny. She then tried the door again, and I obliged by opening it as hard as I could, which knocked her back on her ass, which made me laugh even more. K, you fucking asshole, I'm gonna report you for assault. I'm gonna get you and your retard kid kicked out of here. Me, yeah, whatever Karen, go back to your car before you have a heart attack. She walked back to her car, all the while yelling obscenities. I made sure to keep an eye on her in my rear view until we got closer to the school. Now, the school principal is always outside directing traffic between the parents and school buses. He and I know each other because being in a northern state, but being fans of the U of Miami is not something you see a lot up here, so we've talked about football and other stuff about the school. God, that was a disappointing season. So he knows me a little, and my truck is unique in size, color, and exhaust. As I'm waiting to pull up to the place where you pick up your kid, I see the Karen park, get out, and head directly towards the principal. She made sure to walk by me and give me dirty looks, like I guess that was supposed to intimidate me or something. Spoiler alert, it did not. She gave the principal an earful, couldn't quite hear what she said, but made sure to be as dramatic as possible, probably telling him I'm a drug addict and child molester and all that. Principal is doing his best to direct traffic and put up with her BS, and I assume said something to placate her because she walked away all smug and again made sure to walk by me so I could see her shit-eating grin. I smiled back and shot her the bird. Petty, yes, but in for a penny and all that. I pulled up and my kid got in, and as I figured he would, principal comes over to me. P, did you really put a blunt of pot out on her hand and slam your door into her head? Me, That's so stupid. I don't even know where to start. First, she reached into my vehicle and tried to get the cigar out of my mouth and burned her own hand like the dumbass she is. Second, she tried to open my door not once, but twice, so I obliged her the second time. Third, if I'd opened the door as hard as I could into her head, she'd be knocked out on the road. If her big ass got bruised, along with her ego, that's just tough shit. P. Size. That's about what I thought happened. Just do me a favor and don't retaliate. I don't need another headache. Me. No worries for me, man. Just here to pick up the kid. Go Canes. My kid put up the U symbol as we drove away and that's it. I'll be picking up the kid again later today, so hopefully there's no repeat of that nonsense. Got told to fuck off by my assignment group, and that's just what I did. I do a computer science degree at university. We had a group project which is set out in 2 stages. Part A involved making an application and writing a report about it, 50-50 split. Part B, we got feedback from Part A and had to improve upon it. In total, it was 100% of a module. It's also important to note that there's a group contribution report, GCR, where each student puts in how much they think each student has done. I was in a randomly selected group with 4 others. We each picked the parts of the work that we wanted to do. I was apparently the group's most confident coder, so assigned myself about half of the code and finished up my work in about the first 3 weeks and worked on other projects I have for other modules. Then soon after I finished my work, the others asked me if I could do their parts of the code too. I initially protested as I have my other coursework due, but eventually I said fine, but so long as it's noted in the GCR and they all agreed. I sweated out over the next 3 weeks or so alongside my other coursework. I contacted my module organizer explaining that I had done half the work and they suggested if people weren't pulling their weight to leave the group, taking my code with me and do the report. That would mean I would need to work flat out to produce the report and probably would mess it up. I didn't want that. The deadline was in about a week. Then I got asked to do some report too because they didn't understand how the code worked. By this point, I felt pretty used by them, didn't really mind so long as I got the marks. All in all, it worked out that I had done the workload of 3 people. There was talk among the others of all writing that we each contributed 20% of the workload to make us look better as a team. I flatly refused. They exploded, calling me every name under the sun, swearing at me, telling me to fuck off. I sent off my GCR with 60 for me and 10 each for the rest, and thought that was that. My module organizer then emailed me asking if I had any proof of this, as they all put me at 0% and themselves at 25%. I'd worked my ass off on this project, putting in 150 plus hours on the code and another 50 plus hours on the diagrams and report, all while attending lectures 20 hours a week. Over 7 weeks, which, if I do the math correctly, averages at an extra 4 hours a day. On top of all of that, other assignments and commitments, etc. There was no way I was letting this slide. I emailed him back linking him to the GitHub I used to share the code with the team. GitHub is a source control that shows who made changes to the code, and showed him that all the commits version of the code were done by me, proving that I did all of it. And thankfully, we did the whole report on Google Drive, so I could also see the history on that document and send him screenshots of all the alterations made by me, proving that I wrote 20% of the report also. He added it all up and made a special exception for my group, saying he would give me most credit for the work. I think I ended up with a 65 and they all got 11 for the whole coursework, Part A. They would need 69% to even pass the module. So it turned out I fucked up a bit on the code, only getting about 50% of the marks with like a massive issue in it. Dumb me. For anyone interested, I didn't make a MVC structure correctly, but my report sections were near perfect. Spelling mistakes, a common thing I do, and formatting, etc. There were a few glaring mistakes from the report that they had written, but other than that, not bad. When they found out their marks, they started calling me up and emailing me and messaging me almost for about 3 hours. I was happily out at the time and didn't have my phone with me, so I didn't respond. My module organizer sent an email explaining that they had lied and he had proof about it, so corrected the marks accordingly. When I got back to my phone, I screenshot all the messages they had sent and recorded all the voicemails, including the ones they had sent previously, including multiple occasions where everyone in the group told me to fuck off. And F off I did. I sent all these voicemails and screenshots to my module organizer requesting that I leave my group, and understand that this is is more work for me, but I'd rather not deal with that. He agreed and also escalated the messages to someone higher up. At this point, I quit the group and decided to work on part B by myself, taking all of my code with me, removing their access to all of it. I, of course, asked my module organizer first, and they said it was fine as it was my work, and if I no longer was in the group, the others couldn't submit it. I fixed the error in the code in about 2 weeks, then did the whole report from scratch almost, and added a load about the fix taking me about 7 weeks. I then get messages from the group to please come back. We really need you kind of stuff on the end few days of the assignment. They even offered to pay me. I screenshotted and sent it to the module organizer just to let him know what's happening and then just ignore them. I ended up submitting 2 weeks early for the deadline and got 100% on the whole section too, which is basically unheard of at university, especially by yourself for group work. Later that day, I get an email from a plagiarism and collusion officer, not someone you ever want to get an email from. Basically says I'm summoned to a hearing as an external body looked at both my group, me, myself, and my old group's coursework and thought it was very similar. I get the whole project that my group handed in and my own back as evidence so I can look and prepare my answer to their questions. I email my module organizer, ask if he supports me in this because basically they can punish all of you or one group, never nobody. He says yes, he supports me in this. Perfect. I prepare for the meeting by going through the hundreds of commits I've made while they had access to find the one that's most similar to it. I find a perfect match, 0 differences, not even a single character, through the thousands of lines of code. So I turn up to this meeting. There's the VP of computing there, guy who could basically do whatever the hell he wants to us. My old group, when asked to present their answer as to why this has happened, go on about how they did all of it by themselves, blah blah blah. You get the point. This goes on for about 10 minutes. Then I'm asked to present my argument. I ask if I can share my screen. VP, yeah, okay, puzzled. So I share it. Show all the screenshots I took, as some of the people in the meeting weren't aware that we knew each other, including them basically begging for me to come back, offering money too. And as if this wasn't enough to convince them, I then showed me downloading a fresh version of what they submitted and a fresh version of one of my commits on the GitHub and running it through a trusted comparison software. I narrated this to explain what I was doing just to be clear. Took a while but came up as I knew it would. 0 differences. Everyone was stunned. One of the group members uttered, "But," I just laughed and was quickly asked to hang up as I was no longer involved. Turned out they had cloned one of my commits and still had a copy on their laptop when I blocked their access, not being able to fix it at all, so just submitted it and hoped for the best. One of my friends, who's friends with one from my old group, asked what grade they got, and they said that they failed the whole module as they got a 0 for the second section, giving them just 5.5% overall for the module. You need 40 to pass, and would have to retake it over the summer, costing them and everyone in my group their placement year jobs. After all, who wants someone who failed a module so badly and who was intellectually dishonest working for them? This meant that they all lost out on being paid $20K each for the year's work, which goes a long way for a university student, while I happily get mine. Karen secretly films me jogging and shows video to my boss. I recently had an emergency appendectomy and recovery has been slow. I had to take time off from my own athletics, but worse, from coaching in the kids' sports program I'm involved with. The experience made me step back and realize I really built my whole identity around being active and healthy. So the hit my physical abilities took as a result of being sick, plus the healing process, has made me feel lost. I've been working to regain the joy I used to experience from exercise without going, "Oh, you used to be so much faster with that," or "Your technique used to be so much stronger," or "You don't fit in anymore," or whatever else, and just enjoy myself regardless of the level I'm at. But ironically, the anxiety about not being able to do what I used to has made regaining those abilities difficult. It made me self-conscious about exercising in public spaces, but I was starting to finally get over it as friends convinced me the source of the concerns were all in my head. There's no way to get back to it other than training, so despite the anxiety, I started running again as soon as the doctors approved it. I went to the local track and just did a few slow laps each each morning, building up speed every few days, and I've only just been authorized to add some sprints and bodyweight strength training to the mix. Occasionally, there were other people at the track, but I didn't really notice because I run with headphones on and try to zone out in these lighter sessions. But little did I know, my friends were wrong. It was not all in my head. I was being watched, and more than that, I was being judged. My absolute catastrophe level worst nightmare at this stage of building back my strength and speed. On Friday, I was setting up for practice at the kids program and the head coach asked me into his office because a parent had a complaint. A parent I didn't know too well, Karen, was there and he said she had specific complaints about me. The meeting almost didn't happen because of Karen's initial refusal to put on a mask, required in our facilities for now. But eventually her desire to tell on me for whatever she thought she had on me overrode her freedoms to infect everyone. I was a bit nervous as anyone being called to meet with their boss over a complaint, but I figured it was a classic case of my kid should start more, or I know my kid tried out as a midfielder, but I want him/her to switch to defense. That kind of rules don't apply to me thing. But instead, I sit down in the office and Karen is playing my boss a video of me running on the track that she filmed from afar. It's surrounded by stadium-style risers. I was horrified, both because no one is ever totally used to seeing themselves on video and because I was just embarrassed about how slow I was. But most importantly because why was a virtual stranger, I'd met her personally maybe 4 times ever, filming me while I ran on my own time at a private facility. She then went on to explain that her 8-year-old son, one of the players on my squad, was lapping me in the video and insisting the coaches need to hold themselves to higher athletic standards than the young players if they want to prepare them for college teams. Again, her son is 8. Apparently, her son would sometimes be running on the track while her older child was practicing on a nearby field. I never noticed. The kid is still relatively new, and I didn't pay much attention to the other people on the track. My boss patiently but firmly explained to Karen that my physical abilities are not the parents' concern, and all personnel are closely managed by the head coaches who understand each unique situation and what's appropriate, and that her son wouldn't be impacted. Karen then went on to say my being out of shape was probably connected to why I'd been taking so much time off lately. Technically yes, it's because I was in the hospital. And complaining that the personnel changeover isn't good for the kids. My boss again reiterated that the head coaches hadn't changed or taken any time off and that I was still one of the most skilled in the area I instruct, so this was not her concern. She asked if there was someone else she could speak to, but he explained that he was the owner and founder of this program, so no, there was not. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what had happened to me or even alluding to a health issue to protect my privacy, but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show her how ridiculous she was being and keep her tuition dollars in our program during a difficult time for sports clubs. But when I explained, she just turned to the boss and said, well, maybe you should furlough her until she's healed and bring on a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him. My boss respected what I was trying to do, but made clear we weren't going further with that strategy to avoid setting a precedent of sharing coaches' personal circumstances. Telling her why people take time off or what their health status may be is not her concern because the program manages that and makes appropriate decisions. She kept kicking up a fuss, but the coach finally told her he had to get back out on the field, back to her son and everyone else's kids. She started physically leaving, but continued fussing about how she was not satisfied and would not be recommending us to other parents. Pro tip, not the way to conduct yourself with the people who make recommendations to scouts concerning family culture/team interaction. The coach wasn't preparing to leave. Instead, he stopped her in her tracks to tell her if she was found to be surveilling or otherwise harassing any staff members again, she would be permabanned from the program. No games or practices, no team social events, no presence in our buildings, and no clemency. So that was pretty satisfying. Her son is a good, average kid, and I'm glad the consequences were focused on booting her out rather than limiting his opportunities to have fun playing. So then we went out and had a great, happy, safe practice. This was still a pretty upsetting event for me personally though, and I'll never unsee that discouraging video of me running, but it was ultimately reassuring to know that other staff had my back. Leaving Karen in the dust is just another step on my road to recovery.